Hi there, this is David and welcome to another entry in the Top 10 Strangest RPGs series. Here we're going to be continuing right where we left off at the fall of 2002 up until the end of 2004. During this time, the PlayStation 2 and Game Boy Advance are releasing quality JRPGs on the daily. Personally, I was in college studying to be a teacher, so I was pretty busy, but I still had some time to play these quality RPGs. As usual, I'll be presenting the games in release order, so let's get started. Number 10. The Kingdom Hearts series first released for the PlayStation 2 in September of 2002. I can hear it now in the comments. Kingdom Hearts? How is that strange? Well, at the time of its announcement, it was met with skepticism, with many wondering how the two juggernaut studios would mesh for an action RPG. Nothing like it had been done before, and I don't really see anything like it out there still today. Taking place in Disney-inspired worlds, while encountering Final Fantasy characters along the way is an odd mashup, but shockingly, it works. As a fan of both Disney and Square, I bought this game on day one and I really do enjoy it. Even though it's a 3D platformer and I'm notoriously bad at anything involving 3D jumping. And I'm just not really good at action RPGs in general. So, there was this one boss towards the end where you had to beat him during a specific time limit, and needless to say, I was never able to actually do that, and therefore I couldn't beat the game either. So the game just sits on my shelf, taunting me. Number 9. Magic Pengle, The Quest for Color, first released for the PlayStation 2 in June of 2003. What a cool concept for a game. It's like Okami meets Pokemon. Essentially, you'll be doing your battling in a turn-based format with doodles that you draw yourself, which is kinda cool. And each doodle has their own special attacks, affinities, and abilities, and you're able to draw more intricate designs the further along that you get and the more ink that you gather. You start off with just a basic body and a choice of 4 colors, but as you win competitions against other doodles, you'll gain access to more colors and more types of body parts. The size, shape, and placements of parts like arms, legs, and wings all determine your doodle's stats, the way it moves, and how it generally performs in combat, while the colors dictate what kinds of moves your doodle will be most proficient at. It's pretty neat once you get the hang of it, and interestingly, Studio Ghibli of Jade Cocoon and Ni no Kuni fame is responsible for the art direction here, so if this sparks your interest, check it out. Number 8. Boktai, The Sun Is in Your Hands, released for the Game Boy Advance in July of 2003. I've heard of gimmicks in games, but the Boktai series brings this to a whole nother level, utilizing the sun itself to power up your protagonist. The game comes equipped with solar sensor in it, so when you're playing in the sun, you can get the added combat benefits and change the game's landscape in this unique action RPG. Think Zelda, but with stealth elements and old Western film references sprinkled in. Even without the sunlight gimmick, Boktai would be a great game, but the inclusion of it, as well as other unique mechanics packed in this debut outing, catapulted it to greatness. So much so that it spawned 3 sequels, the second of which was released worldwide, the third languished in Japan though, and the fourth was rebranded as Lunar Nights on the DS, probably because it dropped the solar mechanic. Number 7. Disgaea, Hour of Darkness, released for the PlayStation 2 in August of 2003. There weren't that many options for strategy RPG fans in the West until the PlayStation and Final Fantasy Tactics arrived to make the genre more mainstream, and while I loved that game and a few others, I still pretty much stuck to standard turn-based RPGs for the most part. However, after hearing all the hubbub regarding Disgaea on the Game FAQ's message boards, I decided to pick it up, and boy did this game turn the genre on its head. Starring Laharl, a demon living in the Netherworld who is fighting to become the supreme overlord of the realm, the story is comical, and at times, nonsensical. A complete break from the seriousness of a traditional Fire Emblem or Ogre battle game. Also, leveling is insane. Rather than getting up to say level 50 and beating the game, here you're going to be jumping inside of item worlds and grinding your guys up to 9,999 in a few hours. Throw in a little murder and bribery, and you've got a strange classic on your hands. Number 6. Gladius, released in October of 2003 for the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. Here we have a cool strategy RPG set in the ancient Mediterranean world where Rome, the Norse, and the Egyptians are set on conquering one another. But they don't do this through war. Instead, they compete in gladiatorial games against each other to see which is the strongest nation. You take on the role of either Valens, a fighter vying to be the strongest gladiator in the land, or Ursula, a princess who is the key to reviving the Dark God. The game plays very similar to Final Fantasy Tactics Advance because of the different restrictions that you can put on your team. But while Advance's random laws have the tendency to completely cripple your party, here the restrictions are much more manageable and serve to encourage the player to try out different party members, job class combinations, genders, or nationalities. For a strategy RPG, it's also pretty open world, allowing you to travel all throughout the region and tackle the battles in whatever order you choose. If you're at all interested in the ancient world and you want a long game to sink your teeth into, check this hidden gem out. Number 5. Coro Q, released in November of 2003 for the PlayStation 2. Some games are so strange that they even fly under my radar, and that's saying something. Besides Sailor Moon and JRPGs, of course, I really know very little about the minutiae of Japanese culture. So I'd never heard of the Japanese equivalent of Hot Wheels, Coro Q. Apparently it's a long-running anime series too. Who knew? But anyway, this Atlas title was marketed as a car PG, which is quite clever if you ask me. Combining traditional racing with RPG elements, you literally play as a car, vying to be the best racer in the world. It's also got a pretty involved upgrade system where you can race your car to your heart's content and you gain more money by winning those races. There's also side quests to complete and 3 different towns to explore and visit. With over 250 cars, most of them based off of real-world examples, there's something for everyone in this quirky little gem. Number 4. The Baten Kaitos series, first released in December of 2003 for the GameCube. As one of the few RPGs released for the GameCube, any fan of the genre just had to pick these 2 gems up because they were diamonds in a desert. The series is beautiful, taking place in a landscape above the clouds, littered with floating continents where Earth and the lost oceans below are relegated to legend. The cloudscape is dreamlike and filled with some of the most unique, beautiful, and imaginative towns and dungeons I've ever seen. The inhabitants of the world all have wings on their backs, which helps you move around quickly and assists in some puzzle-solving aspects. Strangely, you don't actually play as the characters that you control. Instead, you're manifested as a guardian spirit who has inhabited the hero's body, and many times your party will break the 4th wall by asking you, the player, for advice. The battle system can take some getting used to because it is card-based, so you're constantly shuffling in new cards, and much to my chagrin, many cards can change their abilities in real time. If you're looking for an old-school challenge with a truly unique setting, look no further than these 2 gems. Number 3. Shadow Heart's Covenant, released in February of 2004 for the PlayStation 2. The Shadow Heart series was one of my favorites back in college, and this, the second in the series, is widely regarded as the best. Taking place 6 months after the events of Shadow Hearts 1, with World War I in full swing, this alternate reality tale is full of twists and turns, as well as humor. On a personal note, I will say that I think that this is just about the most inclusive, gay-friendly RPG that I've ever played. There are multiple gay characters who help out your party, as well as a super hot gay party member. This really helped me relate to it on a deeper level, especially as it was released only 1 year after I came out. It helps that the writing is witty, and the banter between your party members is voiced perfectly, and it's memorable. This is a game that will make you laugh and lift you up when you're feeling down. Give it a go. You won't regret it. Number 2. The Bard's Tale, released in October of 2004 for the Xbox and PlayStation 2. I normally don't feature what I consider to be Western RPGs on this channel, but I have played a few in my days. They're not my favorites, but I have enjoyed a lot of them, and The Bard's Tale is refreshing, especially because I'm pretty sick and tired of goody two-shoes heroes who can't but help but assist every man, woman, and child they come across. I've also grown weary of storylines about the power of friendship and good conquering evil. Well, this game turns those tropes on their heads. The Bard's Tale stars a selfish troubadour who's only out for number one. He will never help anyone out of the goodness of his heart, only if he can get something out of it. And he's not looking for treasure either. He just wants the basics. He wants booze, sex, or gold. It doesn't matter. The game was actually built as a spoof on the typical RPG, and boy, does it deliver. This one breaks the mold so strangely, I just had to include it, even if it is a Western RPG. And finally, number 1, Riviera the Promised Land, released in November of 2004 for the Game Boy Advance. These department heaven games from Sting tend to either be love it or hate it, and for the most part, I tend to fall in the hate it camp. When the game first came out, everyone was shouting from the rooftops, proclaiming it to be God's gift to RPGs, so I picked it up and I was ready to be engrossed in the experience. Instead, I was just grossed out. It wasn't at all like I was expecting, and it didn't capture my interest at all. But that's enough about my experience. Let's talk about the game. Riviera is very dialogue heavy, almost like a visual novel based on Norse mythology, with many choices interspersed throughout that will influence not only who you end up dating, but also which ending you receive. It almost tends to play something akin to Sword of Hope, going from screen to screen, talking and looking around the room, but then with a battle system more like a typical Final Fantasy game. Even though I really didn't like it, I will say that it is gorgeous, and you can tell that a lot of heart was put in the development of this game, so if you like what you see, check it out. Well, that's it for the top 10 strangest RPGs released in the 2002 to 2004 window. What are the strangest RPGs that you've ever played? Let me know in the comments, and if you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day.